Hi, I'm here with composer Anthony Susi, and I am going to be talking to him about several things that he does as a composer. He is a prolific composer for both band, orchestra, and other groups, and we're going to be talking about some great pieces that he works with. You're primarily from Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I lived in Connecticut my whole life, correct.
Oh, wow. We're in Connecticut.
Right now I'm in Manchester, Connecticut, but I've lived in probably 4 or 5 towns in my lifetime, but always in Connecticut.
You probably don't quite have the weather that some of the other people have, like with lots of sunshine or snow.
Well, yeah, we just had the blizzard came through here, sort of a blizzard. It was right on that borderline this past weekend, and we're going to get an ice storm tomorrow. So we get our share of winter weather.
Oh, wow. So what did you do were you a band teacher, correct?
Correct.
Okay. In Connecticut then, what grades
Yes.
did you teach?
I started doing high school coming out right out of college. That's what I had in mind that I wanted to do, and found that my expectations coming out of college after 4 years being removed from the real world, you have these visions of what things should be versus what they really are. And I was pretty frustrated in my first year, though they were pleased with me at the school district, but I chose on my own. I'm like, yeah, and this isn't what I thought it would be. So there was a junior high that opened up. And in all my years teaching, I loved the junior high concept. It was 7, 8, 9. And my best years of teaching and the things we got to do were ideal. And then it became a middle school, 6, 7, 8. So I did that for a while. And then was like, yeah, I want to do some of that harder literature that I started out doing. And so then gravitated back to high school and did that for a while. And then got remarried and doubled the size of my family. I'm like, well, my workload needs to get cut back. And high school band directors, you don't have no life. So there was an opportunity to go back to do middle school. So I did that. And in between all that, I taught some classes at University of Connecticut and University of Hartford part-time to music ed students. So basically grades, even the summer camps I do actually went as young as 3rd grade. So 3rd graders all the way up through college.
That's quite a span.
Yeah, but I enjoy it because there's, as you know, pluses or minuses, pros and cons for different age levels. So you get the best of both worlds if you get a chance to do it all.
Yeah, it really is great. I love teaching kids. So do you teach now?
Part-time now, yeah. After 30 years full-time, the publishing doors started to finally open. I'd been pitching for years and years and writing and doing commissions, but everything was strictly in Connecticut and self-published, and got my breakthrough at Grand Mason Music. And that's when I decided, okay, this might be a good time to go and pursue the composition part more and do teaching part-time. This is what I do now. So.
All right, so this whole interview is really to delve more into you being a composer. So what inspired you to start to compose music?
I was really lucky. My parents are both music educators. So my dad was a middle school and junior high choral director. My mom was a piano teacher. So I had no choice but to start piano when I was 5. And but that's all right. I loved it. But having your mom as a piano teacher, and she always knows when you did or didn't practice. So there were times I wanted to quit piano and needed to take a break from it, but always kept coming back to it. And my dad, I used to go to his concerts all the time and was really inspired to watch him direct choruses and teach. So the inspiration started with the two of them for sure, and the background. And my dad loved classical music, and he played it around the house all the time. He used to pipe into our bedrooms, my brothers and sisters, Aaron Copland music. That's what we were listening to. When my youngest memories as a kid was listening to Aaron Copland at home. And if it wasn't music like that, then it was Sound of Music, or Mary Poppins, or what was, the Disney movies at the time. But it was always quality music. So it started with that. And then I was very fortunate. My elementary music teacher was a off-Broadway composer and vocal coach. And when I was in 6th grade, our town had their tercentennial. And he knew that my parents were musicians and I played piano. And he approached me, he says, I'd like you to write a song for the tercentennial and have our 6th grade chorus sing it. And I'm like, I'm in sixth grade, like, what, and I don't think this is very realistic, but he's like, no, he goes, I'll help you out. He says, and oh, I was like, all right. So wrote it out on piano. I still have the that manila manuscript paper written all out in pencil, hand done, and wrote lyrics to go along with it as well. Played it for him, and he gave me a couple of little suggestions here or there. And he taught it to our sixth graders, and they sang it, the whole chorus, for, I don't know, one of our school assemblies that was related to the tercentennial. So I thought that was a one and done, I was proud of it. But that was it. And then I went to middle school, and he had the opportunity to teach the middle school. So when I moved up, he moved up, ironically. And by eighth grade, we did like a graduation promotion ceremony, kind of a very formal thing, but it was like high school graduation. But then he said, hey, why don't you write a piece for your eighth grade classmates to sing at our graduation promotion ceremony? I'm like, here you go again. Go, okay. So worked on that and lyrics and the music a little bit, and played it for him, and he gave me some more tips on it, and we taught it to the eighth grade chorus, and not chorus, the whole class kind of sang it on stage. And then, okay, then I went to high school. He moved up to the high school. I was very lucky that he just kept moving along with me. His name, by the way, is Robert Laraco. And he was choral director at the high school. He might have still been doing the middle school as well, I don't recall. But nonetheless, at this point, now he really took me under his wing and involved me in recording sessions for his own music. So he was, we have, back in that time, it was vinyl albums. And when he did his shows off Broadway, he was making vinyl albums, and he was using those to pitch to producers, et cetera. And I got to go to studio sessions and sit in and play keyboard on those and really watch the whole process unfold. Got pretty excited about that. And he was even doing some commercials. He did a fashion eyewear commercial, and I got to play on that too. So it was exciting, by that point I was 15 and I was on his vinyl album, playing keyboards, and had played some keyboard on a commercial that he wrote and recorded. And by senior year, of course, he said, I want you to write a song for graduation. Here we go again. Huh? But he said, but this time you perform it by yourself, not the whole class or the chorus. So I was really nervous because graduation is a much bigger audience and a bigger formal deal than the other things were. And I thought my way out was I was asked to speak at graduation as salutatorian, and I was even more nervous about speaking. So I thought I'd cut a deal with the administration. I'd say, okay, if I write a song and sing it, can I do that? And they said, well, you bring it to us, and we want to hear it, and we have to approve it. I said, oh, I get it. Make sure it's appropriate, et cetera. So wrote this song, brought it in, sat with the principal and the music teacher, and I think maybe the vice principal or someone on the board of ed, and played the tune, and they're like, we like it. And they said, you can do it. I'm like, yes. And they're like, but you still have to speak. I'm like, no, this was supposed to be the trade-off was I do this, and instead I don't have to speak. And they said, no, you still have to give a speech. I was like, oh, that was not the way I thought it was going to play out. So once I did that, then I had the bug, like, to keep writing, and I just started cranking out music. So I went to art school of music, and instead of doing your normal recitals, on your main instrument, I was a brass player. I did composition instead. I wasn't a composition major, I was a music ed major, but I did a lot of arm twisting to be allowed to do that instead of the traditional recital on brass. And each year I was at school, it was kind of neat. I did a showcase of my music and got other musicians to play, in the concerts we'd put on. And then by that time, and then I started really pitching to record labels and all that kind of thing. And it just kept snowballing at that point. Yeah.
It really sounds like it, thanks to the inspiration of this one teacher.
Yeah, between my parents, like I said, with their training and their inspiration and background, and then this particular teacher, Mr. Laraco, being a composer himself, encouraging me and always pushing me do a little more, do a little more. So.
Now, you said that your mom was a piano teacher and your dad was a choral director. You kind of cut your own path with a brass playing. So what is your primary instrument?
Well, I started out on trumpet, and then halfway through Hart, there was a shortage of euphonium players at the school, and they said, "Hey, we need someone who's willing to play euphonium." And I'm not the greatest trumpet player. I'd be the first to tell you. And I was like, "I'm never going to make wind ensemble as a trumpet player here. I'll always be in symphonic band. But if I switch to euphonium, I stand a much better chance." And I did, and I made it to wind ensemble, so it turned out to be okay.
That's like there's so many violins in orchestra that if you switch to the viola, you got it made.
Yeah, yes, there you go. It's the same concept. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you if there were people in your life that encouraged you, but you definitely told us the story of all of the people that just kept telling you, keep at it, keep at it. So my son told me that he wanted to become a professional cellist, and I have to tell you that my first reaction is you need a degree so you can have a real job. So did you ever hear that from anybody?
Yeah, everybody. I was our class salutatorian, and all the teachers, you know, I love my teachers in high school, but they were like, kind of like you said, not that it's not a real job. They're like, "Oh, you're not going to make any money as a teacher. You should be a doctor. You should be a lawyer," you know? And I just knew that money has never been like the reason for me to work. Like I want to enjoy everything I do. And I knew I really enjoyed making music and performing. So that wasn't a worry. It wasn't worried for me. And I think probably because my parents were also music teachers, I saw that, you know, I never felt wanting or needing anything, that I was well provided for. So I'm like, well, they did well raising a family as music teachers. I felt confident I could do the same. And I had their support because they were music teachers. If my parents weren't musicians, they probably would have been like my teachers. And it's like, no, be a doctor, be a lawyer. You got brains, use your brain. You know, but they knew that it takes a lot of brain power, et cetera, to be a teacher and to be a musician. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand how much goes into a musical career. So one of the questions is, there's a lot of internal challenges and conflicts into becoming a successful artist. What are you seeing as the top 3 challenges when you are a composer?
There's a lot of people who can write music. That's probably the first thing. Like I remember Mr. LaRocco telling me when I started thinking, you know, that it was by pitching these demos I was making to producers and record labels, that I was going to land something, you know. And he's like, he goes, "In where you grew up," he says, "you were a big fish in a little pond." He says, "Now you're a little fish in a big pond." He said, and he was so right. So the more I think the first eye opener for me was I went to a songwriters conference out in LA, and that's all it was. There was people from all over the world, and they had every night they had a showcase, and they would draw names. Everybody who was registered it was Taxi was the organization. They're like they call themselves Taxi because they're like a go between the artists and hooking them up with producers and record labels and A&R directors. And they all are former A&R directors themselves that were screening all these music coming in. And I got, my number was drawn. I never win anything, but it was the day I arrived from Connecticut to LA. My head was all stuffed up. I had bad allergies, and the ear pressure from the traveling, and I didn't know about earplanes back then. So I couldn't hear, my ears were ringing. It was like, and now I got to get up and perform in front of like all composers themselves and musicians. And the time difference is 3 hours. And this nighttime annual or nightly coffee hour, whatever you want to call it, was from 9 p.m. till pretty much midnight. And I went on at 11:30 LA time, which is 2:30 in the morning Connecticut time. So I'm wiped out. My ears are blocked up and ringing. And I played, you know, and it was well received, but I heard all these other performers. That's the point, and talked with all these other composers, and I was just blown away. And this was just one songwriters conference. And then the bigger eye opener was a few years ago. I went to the Midwest Band Orchestra Clinic for the first time, Never was able to go because it was always held right before the holiday break, and school districts aren't too keen on letting you take days off when you're going to have, a week to 10 days off coming up. Plus there's always the winter holiday concerts. It just wasn't going to happen. So finally got to go now that I'm not teaching full time. And that's when I really was like, oh my God, like all the publishers, all the composers, the quality of the music, all that. And I'm like, yeah. So and there's a long-winded answer, but just that there's so many people writing, and they're writing for all different genres, and they have all different backgrounds, and they're all extremely creative. So the competition it's fierce. not that the people who write educational music, they're the nicest people you'll ever meet. They're down earth, salt of the earth people. And because most of them, not all of them, came up like I did and you did through teaching themselves. Not all, some of them went composition majors, but still can relate. And but it's just it's not easy to break through. It took me 20 years of pitching pieces to finally get a yes. And then once you do, then you start the networking, and that's what it comes down to. You start to make contacts, and yeah. But you asked for three things, huh? That's for me, that's the biggest. I mean, because I had a good background in music education and in music theory and all that part of it. I had the tools, I guess,
Yeah, and you also talked about the marketing aspect and how difficult it is. Once you get your foot in the door, it's a lot easier, but you have to get that foot. So
you have to self-promote, that's for sure. I would go to all the state conferences. I would not miss, and I would, present. I would always submit proposals to present workshops and things, and was fortunate enough to get asked, get them approved and get to do those opportunities. And guest conducting came about through joining organizations like ASBDA, Phi Beta Mu, Band Masters, and having those opportunities and open the door to say, hey, I've got some music I wrote, can I have this honored band premiere this piece, or have your band premiere, and then that's exciting for them that, we get to premiere a piece with a living composer. It was kind of a win-win situation. And by presenting at conferences, guest conducting, your name gets out there more, people start becoming more aware, that what you're doing with music as far as composition. And then the commissions start coming in, and like I said, it took 20 years literally I just got a piece that's going to be released this spring, Faces of America. I wrote it back in 1999 for our high school band that year was accepted to be one of the groups that performed at the state all-state conference. So I wanted to do something really special with the kids, and that's when I wrote the piece. Now I've been pitching it since 1999, I think I started pitching in 2000 and got a lot of no's, but every time I get a no, I then go back, look at the piece, tweak it some more before I pitch it again. And it's been reworked for sure since the original version. It's coming out this spring, so persistence.
well, and I think a lot of things have changed. So Faces of America is a special piece for right now. Everyone's really interested. Yeah. So you did a perfect lead into my next question, which is orchestras and other groups commission you to write music for their organization. So how do you go about the creative process to compose a piece for them? Do they suggest something to you, or how do you start?
Great question. Everybody's a little bit different, I'm sure, composers, but for me, if it's a commission versus pieces I've written from my own inspiration, I want there to be ownership for sure. So all the commissions that I've done, and I would say more than half the pieces that are published were commissioned works, I always go in and meet with the ensemble, whether it's an orchestra or a band, and talk to the students. I share with them some background about what goes into writing a piece, the thought process, the considerations that have to be taken into account. Then I share with them some of the pieces that I've done and talk about how there's, piece could be a programmatic piece and what that means, or it could be, and if it's programmatic, is it a historical programmatic, or is it about a play? As what's the setting? or is it a piece that you want to pay tribute to someone? Is it, so I share them all the different types of pieces that you could do. What this, the subject, what's the subject matter? What's the topic going to be? And after I do that, then I give them a survey. It's, I think, just this quick 6 or 7 question survey. And every student fill it out. They make a big spreadsheet with all the responses. And then I start looking for commonalities of what they're interested in, subject matter wise, type of piece, style, and then I bring that spreadsheet back and meet with the group a second time and show them, here's what the majority of you are leaning towards. So this is, it's a democracy. This is what we're going to go with. And then once the whole band knows what the majority wants to do, the next thing is, okay, guys, you come up with a title. This is going to be what we're doing. And then the students submit suggestions for titles, and they vote on the titles that they like the best. We narrow it down, and then the final majority vote becomes the title of the piece. I think all the titles that the pieces that were commissioned stuck. Like, I don't recall a publisher changing the title of a commissioned work. So it's kind of cool. So the kids really had students. They always had ownership in the whole process, and I think that helps them buy into the whole thing. And it's, for me, I like the challenge too. Like, okay, this is what they want. Now I got to produce it, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it that way. I'd rather that than me write a piece that's about from my own personal inspiration and they can't connect or relate to it, which would very likely happen, So I kind of have this little system down. It seems to have worked really well with this meeting twice with the students. And then, after having done that, then I dive into writing the piece.
Have you ever found a disconnect between the titles that they want and what you feel the group may want?
No, because once they see this, and I color coded and everything, it's kind of crazy. This spreadsheet, we put it up on the, projected on the screen so everybody can see, and they get a good sense of, what it is we're going for. So I give you examples of one commission was for 7th graders. After going through all their input, they clearly wanted a piece that had to do with a natural disaster. Okay. So at that point, then I was like, okay, this is where you guys want, I think middle schoolers, right? They're like, hurricane, tornado, typhoon, so.
I'm surprised it wasn't aliens.
Well, oh no, that was the runner-up. That was a very close second, was going to be alien invasion. That was, and actually remind me, I got to write that down. I have yet to write that piece. That was the runner-up. So once we got down to the fact that they wanted to do a piece about a natural disaster, then I was like, all right, so what are we going to do about a blizzard? Are we going to do about a tidal wave? Are we going to do a tornado? What? And then they narrowed it down to tornado. Once we had that it's going to be about a tornado, then they came up with ideas, and the one they came up with was Tornado Alley, because that section of the country where the tornadoes are prominent. Another one, it was a high school group, Maloney High School, and they wanted to do clearly a piece about good versus evil, and dark being representative of evil and light representing goodness, and a battle of sorts between dark and light, good and evil. So, okay, so where we started going with that, the director's like, he said, because we got to stay away from anything that has any kind of religious connotation in this commission, because he goes, somebody, is going to not be okay with that. So I said to the students, I said, excuse me, I said, so we got to take a little different approach, but still keep the idea. I said, so let's just stick with dark and light, and people can make their own connections of whatever they want with that. But clearly there's that association of the dark side in Star Wars, right? That's evil. And so we came up with nocturnal creatures, and it's about, the piece starts out in the sun setting. It's peaceful. And once the sun goes down in the piece in darkness, all the predators come out, and then people fear predators because it's in the dark that they, if those same creatures existed during the daytime, we probably wouldn't fear them as much as we do. So then it just goes through like this period of nighttime and all this. There's spiders and wolf packs and lions and all this stuff, the hunt and all that. And then the sun comes up at the end of the piece, and then all the animals and predators, go back to their homes or wherever, and then it ends in a positive, peaceful thing. So Nocturnal Creatures is what came out of that. But I did end up doing, it's a piece I just recently finished called Light Prevails. Went back to that whole idea of good versus evil, and the battle and all that. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
That really sounds great. And it's fun to see how the creativity of all of the people involved turns into a really great piece that we can all play and see the combinations of it and connect to it.